بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين. Let's make our intentions for the sake of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And let us continue from where we left off last time. We were speaking about al-Qadar, the management of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala by His eternal and everlasting will, which is known by Allah with His everlasting and eternal knowledge, and Allah creates with His eternal and everlasting power. It has been transmitted, Shaykh Abdullah al-Harari rahimahullah said, it has been transmitted in the Sahih hadith, so it's an authentic hadith, narrated by al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, one of the mujtahid scholars of this nation, in his book al-Musnad. Likewise, it was narrated by Abu Dawood as-Sijistani, the great hafiz of hadith, who has a collection of hadith known as as-Sunan, Sunanu Abi Dawood. He narrated this in his book as-Sunan. So these are two narrators so far. Al-Imam Ahmad fi Musnadih wa Abu Dawood fi Sunanih. And likewise Ibn Hibban, another great hafiz, an esteemed hafiz and scholar of hadith. They narrated from the route of Ibn al-Daylami. Ibn al-Daylami said, I came to Ubay ibn Ka'ab, the companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, and I said, Ya Abal Munzir. This was the kunya, this was the title of Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiyallahu anhu. So Ibn al-Daylami said, Ya Abal Munzir, something has occurred to me in my mind. Something has come to me. I've thought of something with reference to the issue of Qadr. So talk to me about it. Talk to me. Perhaps he felt that if Ubay ibn Ka'ab speaks about it, then in what he says will be something that Ibn al-Daylami could hold on to, something that would relieve him, something that would answer the question that crossed his mind. So he said to Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiyallahu anhu, so talk to me about it. Perhaps Allah would benefit me by your speech. So Ubay said, Inna Allah, and remember Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiyallahu anhu is a companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. He saw him, he met him, he spoke with him, he learned from him. So he is someone who would not speak without knowledge. So he said, Inna Allah law azaba ahla samawatih wa ahla ardih. Had it been the case that Allah was to punish all of those in the sky. Who is in the sky? The angels. He said, had it been the case that Allah was to punish all of those that are in the sky and all of those that are on the earth, لَعَذَّبَهُمْ, He would have punished them, وَهُوَ غَيْرُ ظَالِمٍ لَهُمْ, without Him being unjust. Meaning, whatever Allah wills to be shall be. Allah can do whatever He wills. It is impossible for Allah to be unjust. So, had Allah punished everyone, then this would not be dhulm, this would not be an injustice from Allah. And then he continued, radiyallahu anhu, he said, this is Ubay ibn Ka'ab, radiyallahu anhu, Ubay ibn Ka'ab. He said, وَلَوْ رَحِمَهُمْ, and had Allah bestowed His mercy upon all of these people, had Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala been merciful to all of these people, كانت رحمته خيرا لهم من أعمالهم. So instead of punishing all of those on the earth and all of those in the skies, which would not have been an injustice from Allah, instead of doing that, had Allah had mercy upon all of those in the sky and all of those on the earth, then His mercy to them would be greater, would be greater than their deeds. This reminds me of the saying of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, that لا يدخل أحدكم الجنة بعمله, which means none of you will enter paradise based upon your deeds. What he meant by this alayhi salatu wassalam was that it is by the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that a person enters paradise. In other words, it was not obligatory upon Allah to admit people into paradise or to create paradise. But Allah did create paradise, and Allah will admit people into paradise. Some of the scholars, they said, وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ means that the reward that Allah gives and the mercy that Allah has upon His slaves, their deeds don't equate that. Meaning that the mercy of Allah and the generosity of Allah is much, much more than the deeds that the people do. So he said, وَلَوْ رَحِمَهُمْ كَانَتْ رَحْمَتُهُ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ مِنْ أَعْمَالِهِمْ. Had Allah had mercy upon those in the sky and those on the earth, then His mercy would be greater than their deeds. وَلَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مِثْلَ أُحُدٍ ذَهَبًا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And if you were to give an amount of gold that equates to the size or the weight of Mount Uhud in Al-Madinah, that's a lot of gold. Al-Uhud is about 7 kilometers across. That much gold. He said, if you were to لو أنفقت مثل أحد, like Uhud ذهبا in terms of gold, في سبيل الله, for the sake of Allah, ما قبله الله منك, Allah would not accept it from you حتى تؤمن بالقدر, until you believe in al-Qadar. Meaning, if you donate all of that for the sake of Allah and you don't believe in al-Qadar, you don't believe that everything is willed by Allah, everything that happens has been willed by Allah, and if you don't believe that all of it was known and is known to Allah, and if you don't believe that everything that exists, Allah is its creator, this is al-Qadar, these three matters. If you don't believe in them, then even this tremendous amount of gold that you donate, it will not be accepted from you. You will not be rewarded for it, because one of the conditions of the acceptance of the deeds is for a person to be a Muslim, and the one who denies al-Qadar would not be a Muslim. And Ubay continued to speak about al-Qadar as Ibn al-Daylami had asked him. Remember, Ibn al-Daylami, he came to this companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and said, something occurred to me with regards to al-Qadar, something that most likely disturbed him. So he said to Ubay, tell me, speak about al-Qadar. Hopefully I would benefit. This flame that is ignited in my chest, maybe it will die down. It will be cooled by something that I hear from you. So he began to tell him about al-Qadar. And he said, وَتَعْلَمَ أَنَّ مَا أَصَابَكَ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيُخْطِئَكَ. You must also believe, if you want to be accepted by Allah, you must also believe that what was eternally willed to happen to you will not miss you. Here, a type of imagery is used where the verb asaba and yukhti is mentioned. This is usually mentioned about an arrow that is fired. So literally it means that you have to know, you must believe in the fact that that which was willed for you will strike you. Like an arrow, it will strike you. And that which was not willed for you, it will go over your shoulder. It will go between your legs. It will not hit you. It will not strike you. And وَمَا أَخْطَأَكَ, and you should also know that what didn't strike you, what didn't hit you, لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيُصِيبَكَ. It wasn't supposed to hit you. It wasn't supposed to happen to you. And then he said finally, وَلَوْ مِتَّ عَلَى غَيْرِ هَذَا. He said to Ibn al-Daylami, and if you die upon other than this that I just said to you, all of this, لَدَخَلْتَ النَّارِ, you would enter hell. Meaning you would die as a kafir. Then Ibn al-Daylami, after he heard this from the companion Ubay ibn Ka'ab, radiyallahu anhu, said, I then went to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, another great companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, a companion to whom the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said, recite the Quran to me. I want to hear the Quran. So when Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, Ya Rasulullah, it is revealed to you and you want me to recite it to you? He said, أحب أن أسمعه من غيري. I like to hear it from others. I like to hear the Quran from others. And he liked to hear it from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. So Ibn al-Daylami, after he heard this, all of this from Ubay ibn Ka'ab, he said that he went to Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And he said that Ibn Mas'ud told me something similar to what Ubay ibn Ka'ab had mentioned. Surprisingly, something very similar. Then he said, I went to Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman. Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman, another great companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. They call him Sahibu Sirri Rasulillah. He was one of a few companions whom the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam had informed, he had given him the names of some of the hypocrites and so on. So Ibn al-Daylami said, I went to Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman and he said something similar. Then he said, I went to Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit was another companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. He wrote al-Wahi when the Quran used to be revealed to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. Zayd ibn Thabit used to write it down. Zayd ibn Thabit was appointed by our master Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu to sit with our master Umar al-Faruq radiyallahu anhu, to sit with him at the doors of al-Masjid al-Nabawi and to jot down all of the verses that the companions had memorized so that they could gather it in a book and call it the Mus'haf and then make copies of it. And they trusted Zayd ibn Thabit with that. Zayd ibn Thabit attended the final gathering in which the Quran was read to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And he told them to put this verse here, put this verse there. start with this surah, delay this surah. He attended this last recital, if you will, the last reciting of the Quran. So Zayd ibn Thabit was a great companion. So Ibn Daylami, he went to Zayd ibn Thabit and he said, Zayd ibn Thabit told me something similar, but Zayd ibn Thabit said, I heard this from the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wassalam. So you see, the Sahaba of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam, they were in agreement. You had Ubay ibn Ka'ab, then Ibn Mas'ud, then Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman, and then Zayd ibn Thabit, all of them mentioning something very similar. And then in the end, so Ibn Daylami, look how his confidence in this matter grows, of al-Qadar. He hears this again and again, that if Allah had willed to torture everyone in the sky and everyone on the earth, then He would not be unjust. This would not be an injustice. And had He been merciful to them, then His mercy would be greater than their deeds. And if you donate an amount that is equal to the mountain of Uhud in gold, Allah will not accept it from you unless you believe in al-Qadr. What was going to hit you won't miss you. What missed you was never going to hit you. And if you die believing in other than this, then you are a kafir. So he heard that from Ubay ibn Ka'ab. He heard that from Ibn Mas'ud, Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman, all great companions. We could sit here and mention and review their biographies and the situations in which they were, in which they spoke to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and great stories. All of them, right to the very end, Zayd ibn Thabit, they confirmed this matter. And then Zayd ibn Thabit said, I heard this from the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. Then Al-Imam Muslim narrated in his Sahih, in his book As-Sahih, and Al-Bayhaqi narrated in Kitab al-Qadr, in a book called Kitab al-Qadr, from the route of Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali. Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali was not a companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Rather, he was a follower of the companions. He was from at-Tabi'een, the followers. And he is the one that under the direction of Al-Imam Ali radiyallahu anhu, he put down the first rules of Arabic grammar. There is a famous story about him being on the roof of his house with his daughter, and his daughter made a grammatical mistake, and he corrected her. And after that he became worried. Also after realizing that Islam was spreading, and so non-Arabs, i.e. non-Arabic speakers, they were embracing al-Islam, and the Arabs, they were becoming weaker in their own classical tongue. So he went to Al-Imam Ali radiyallahu anhu, and he told him this. So Al-Imam Ali said that Al-Kalam ismun wa fi'lun wa harfun ja'a li ma'na. He told him that speech is made up of certain things. In brief, verbs, prepositions, and nouns, you might say. Otherwise, in the Arabic language, the explanation of these words is more specific. This is Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali. Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali. So he went to our master Imran ibn al-Husayn. And Imran ibn al-Husayn was a mujtahid among the companions. He is the one who we mention that narrated from the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, كان الله ولم يكن شيء غيره وكان عرشه على الماء وكتب في الذكر كل شيء وخلق السماوات والأرض. This is Imran ibn al-Husayn. Two angels used to visit him every day. So Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali said that Imran said to me, Imran, the son of al-Husayn, with a Sad, said to me, and he asked him this to test him. He said, do you see what the people are doing today? Ya Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali, do you see what the people are doing today? And that in which they are laboring, meaning, do you see the hard work people are doing today? Is it something that has been willed for them and that has come to pass on them from what was predestined? Or is it among what they encounter without destiny? Tell me about this. Imran ibn al-Husayn, of course, he knew that Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali knew the answer, but he's just picking his brain about it. He wants him to be sharp. So he asked him that what we are doing today, is it the case that this is willed? Is it written in the guarded tablet and so on and so forth? Or is it among what they encounter? Or is it not predestined? Can you answer me? Can you answer me with a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam or something in the Quran? So not just give me the answer because I know you know, but give me a proof from the Quran. Sometimes the companions would do this because they will have heard something from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and they want to benefit others. So they'll say, do you know why this is? And this would please them like it would please any of us because they get a chance to teach. So they say, do you know about this and this? Or no? Okay. Should I tell you why it's like this? Because I heard the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam say such and such. So he said, can you give me a proof? Can you give me a proof from what the Prophet came with alayhi salatu wasalam? And then by this proof, this would be an evidence that we establish against anyone who says otherwise. So Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali said, it is something that has been willed for them, of course, and has come to pass upon them, meaning that it's obviously predestined. It's eternally known to Allah and willed by Allah. So then Imran ibn al-Husayn said to him, would that not have been injustice? Meaning that if we say that it's already been willed and so on, then wouldn't that necessitate injustice, like as though people are being forced to do things? So Abu al-Aswad said, I was very shocked by this question. And I said, everything is his creation and he owns everything. لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. Allah is the one, and this is a verse from the Quran. He said, Allah is not asked about what He does. Rather, the creation are the ones who will be asked. So he mentioned an ayah of the Quran. He said, لا يسأل عما يفعل. الله يفعل ولا يسأل. وهم الناس المخلوقون يسألون. The people are asked. So Imran said, may Allah have mercy upon you. I did not intend by my question except to test your intellect. إلا لأحرز عقلك. إلا لأحرز عقلك. Except to test you. Except to test you to see, are you able to refute a person who says otherwise? Refute them with something in the Quran or not? So then he continued, he said, verily, two men from the Arabian tribe of Muzayna came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he's telling Abu al-Aswad now. And these two men said, O Messenger of Allah, do you see what the people are doing today and that in which they are laboring? Is it something willed for them and that has come to pass on them from what was predestined, eternally willed by Allah? Or is it something, or is it among what they encounter without destiny? Can you answer us? So they said, can you answer us with that which was revealed to you? So the Prophet said, indeed, it is something that has been willed for them and has come to pass on them. And what proves the truthfulness of that is what Allah revealed to him, alayhi salatu wassalam. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Surah Al-Shams, ayahs 7 and 8. He mentioned these ayahs, which mean that Allah revealed, Allah said, and I swear by the self, the nafs, and by Allah who created it. وَنَفْسٍ أي أقسم بالنفس والذي سوى النفس والذي خلق النفس. I swear by the self and by Allah who created the self, the nafs. He is the one who inspired the nafs to do good and to do evil. Meaning Allah is the one that eternally willed that people, they will do good and they will also do bad. Allah is the one who willed that, which is proof that it's been predestined. This verse means that everything that the slave does, good or evil, from movement to stillness, and even the intentions, it is all by the eternal will of Allah, and in compliance with the knowledge and with His knowledge and His destiny. And there is also the Sahih Hadith, فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. This hadith means whoever finds something good, whoever does something good, or something good happens to them, let them praise Allah. Let them say Alhamdulillah. And whoever finds other than that, meaning something evil occurs to them, then let them blame no one but themselves. In other words, Allah is not considered unjust for creating evil. But a person who does wrong by his own intention, he is blameworthy for that. This hadith was narrated by Muslim from the Qudsi hadith of Abu Dhar, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Allah Azza wa Jal. As for this first individual that did something good, he should praise Allah, because Allah is the one who is generous to him by creating him and granting him the ability to do this good, without it having been obligatory upon Allah. Hence, the slave should say, Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah, because He was generous to me. As for the second person who did something evil, haram, by his own intention, then he should blame only himself, because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala brought into existence this evil inclination that the slave had. But the slave, he did not feel compelled to do that. He intended to do that. Therefore, he is to blame. Allah eternally knew that this human would incline towards things amongst the good and the evil. Hence, Allah with His power made manifest whatever the slave was inclined towards. Therefore, whoever Allah misguides, that was by His justice. And whoever He guided, that was by His generosity. Because Allah is not obligated to do anything. Someone might ask, if Allah eternally knew that some people would commit kufr and die in the state of kufr, why did He not then just create them in hell? Why didn't He just create them in hell? If Allah eternally was going to will, or eternally had willed anyway, that these people would die, that they would live as kuffar and die as kuffar, why not create them in hell in the first place? Had Allah Ta'ala created the creations and put a group of them in paradise and a group of them in hell, based on His prior knowledge that they will not embrace Islam, those that are in hell, then the situation of the tortured among them would have been as Allah described in the Quran when He revealed in Surah Taha, وَلَوْ أَنَّا أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ مِّن قَبْلِهِ لَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا لَوْلَا أَرْسَلْتَ إِلَيْنَا رَسُولًا فَنَتَّبِعَ آيَاتِكَ مِن قَبْلِ أَن نَّذِلَّ وَنَخْزَىٰ. Had Allah created them in hell, then these people would say, or had Allah devastated them with a punishment without sending messengers, the people would say, "Oh our Lord, if only you had sent a messenger to us so that we would follow your signs before we were humiliated and disgraced in hell." This is what they would say. But then in the life of the world, they wouldn't believe. They'd say that afterwards, only if you had sent us a prophet. Only if you had. Only if you had. Only if you had. And then there will be those that say, "Oh Allah, send us back now. This time we'll go and we'll believe." Hence Allah sent the messengers as givers of good tidings and as warners. Thus, by the sending of the messengers, Allah made it clear what were the inclinations of the slave, whether obedience or refusal to obey. Therefore, the one who is misguided and thus tortured would be shown to be misguided based upon a manifest evidence. So the kuffar wouldn't be able to say, "Oh Allah, send us back because you didn't send us a prophet." They wouldn't be able to say that. This would not hold up. This argument would not hold up for them. This is why Allah did not create those who He eternally willed to enter hell and be in hell forever in hell. And the one who is guided and thus rewarded would be shown to be guided based upon a manifest evidence that they were pious in the life of the world, and this is the result of that piety. This is the reward for that obedience. Allah informed us that the destiny of a portion of His creation is hell. That the destiny of a portion of His creation is hell. Because of the deeds they did by their choice. Yes, Allah created their deeds. Yes, Allah created their intentions. But at the time of doing those deeds, they did them willingly. They did them willingly. And Allah was knowledgeable with His eternal knowledge that they would not believe. Allah Ta'ala revealed in ayah 113 of Surah As-Sajdah, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَآتَيْنَا كُلَّ نَفْسٍ هُدَاهَا وَلَكِنْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ مِنِّي لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Allah revealed, and had I willed, I would have given every self its guidance. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, had He willed, then everyone would be guided. Everyone would have been created in paradise. But Allah mentioned, وَلَكِنْ, what I have declared is true. وَلَكِنْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ مِنِّي. What Allah has declared is true. And what is it that Allah has declared? لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Allah declared that I will fill hell with the jinn, the shayateen, and humans together. Someone might say, but look, still, they might not understand, they might not appreciate. They might say, look, Allah created our bodies. Allah created us in this world. When it was intellectually possible originally that Allah wouldn't create us, but Allah willed to create me in this world. And if Allah has eternally willed that I will die as a kafir, then it will be because of deeds that I do that He created, that I did by intentions that He created. Someone might not understand then, how is it that I am to blame? Then here we would say, look, Allah does whatever He wills. That's it. Allah does whatever He wills. Allah owns you, and Allah owns your soul, and Allah does whatever He wills. He eternally willed to torture you in hell. This is what will happen. This is what will happen. You've at least been given a sense of control. We are at the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We are under the mercy of Allah. It is thought that if a person sincerely strives to be an obedient slave, to acquire knowledge, to implement it, to teach others, he cries out of the fear of the torture that Allah may inflict upon him. It is hoped that such a person, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will guide him to the truth, and he will die as a Muslim. As opposed to someone who just wants to argue. He just wants to sit there and say, well, how am I to blame? Or he says kufr things like, it's not fair. Why does He have to punish me? Why has He already willed it for me when I don't even get a say at it? Well, you're alive now, so act. Sort your life out. Stop complaining. Once you submit, if you're a Muslim, then you believe in Islam, which is submission. Surrender to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and do the things that are obligatory upon you, and then you live between hope and fear. This is how it is. This is how it is. The one who understands that, he relaxes. He says, MashaAllah, whatever Allah has willed to be shall be, but I am going to strive. And whatever I do achieve, when I do exert myself in doing the good deeds and acquiring religious knowledge, I hope that this means I will have a good end. But if you just sit there doing nothing, then where's that going to get a person? So it shows us how weak we actually are. We don't really have control of course, we don't have control of where we're going to end up, because it's already been willed by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. But we can do the deeds. We can do the deeds that would be done by those who would reach paradise, and then hope that we are among the people of paradise. This is why the Prophet said, لا يدخل أحدكم الجنة بعمله. None of you will enter paradise because of his deeds, rather because of the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So ask Allah for forgiveness. Ask Allah to have mercy upon you. Do the deeds of the people of paradise. There is the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said that إن الرجل ليعمل بعمل أهل الجنة حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيسبق عليه الكتاب. A person will do the deeds of the people of paradise until there is only a small distance between him and paradise, and then literally what was written in the book would occur, i.e. he would commit kufr and he would die as a kafir. Or the opposite, إن الرجل لا يعمل بعمل أهل النار حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع. He would do sinful things in his life. He would do things, the deeds of the people of hell, until there is almost, it literally says, a cubit between him and hell. فَيَسْبِقُ عَلَيْهِ الْكِتَابِ فَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ فَيَدْخُلُهَا. And then what was eternally written in the book would occur, i.e. he would embrace Islam and then die as a Muslim. One needs to be sincere in requesting paradise. One needs to remain fearful of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and constantly ask. Asking is dua. And the Prophet said, Ad-du'a'u mukhul ibadah. Ad-du'a is a very strong worship. It's a very strong worship. In another hadith, he said, Ad-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah. Ad-du'a literally is worship. It's a huge worship. In this verse, Allah informed us that He eternally declared, certainly I will fill hell with the jinn and humans altogether. Those that will have eternally been willed to enter hell, they will. And this saying of Allah is true. And this saying of Allah is referred to in many different places. Allah does not go back on His declaration, on His threat, on His promise. Because going back on one's promise or threat would necessitate lying. And it's impossible that Allah would lie. Allah revealed in ayah 149 of Surah Al-An'am, قُلْ فَلِلَّهِ الْحُجَّةُ الْبَالِغَةُ. O Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, say that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has al-hujjatul baligha. Some of the scholars said it means the strong, irrefutable, trusted evidence in the form of the Quran. And that the prophets were supported by miracles. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has this. فَلَوْ شَاءَ لَهَدَاكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Had He willed, He would have guided all of you. Which means Allah did not will to guide everyone. Rather, He willed to misguide some. So these matters of al-Qadar, they are deep issues that a person needs to understand. The one who understands the matters of al-Qadar well, he becomes content with the situations, with the hardships he or she is in. They become content. They say, MashaAllah, kan. Allah, whatever He will to be shall be. I'll be patient, whatever it is. And they do not object to Allah. They know their place. They know they are a weak slave, a human being who is reliant upon the mercy of Allah, reliant upon the rizq of Allah, reliant upon every breath that Allah gives him or her. So when one knows their place, they do not object to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. When they truly surrender, then they do not object to Allah. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said that we should not delve into the matters of al-Qadr. Like I described that person who keeps saying, no, but why? No, but why? Why did Allah will such and such? And create my intention and create me and why? No, but what? No, tell me why. I want to know why. This is delving too deep into al-Qadr. One should know that you surrender to the will of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and try to do good and have hope that you will be successful and fear that you will be unsuccessful. Don't go further than that, because then you will get lost. Then you might start saying things like, oh well, for me to be accountable, I must be creating my deeds. I must be a little creator. Or someone might object and say, well, you know what? I'm not bothered. I'm not even accountable. Well, they surely are. In both situations, they would commit kufr. To say that they create or to say that I'm not even accountable. I won't be asked. I shouldn't be asked. This is objecting to Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْقَدَرُ فَأَمْسِكُوا إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْقَدَرُ فَأَمْسِكُوا. If destiny is being mentioned, if these issues are being mentioned, then refrain from talking about it. Refrain from talking about it. Refrain from delving into it like the person I described. As for going into it, speaking about the things that we spoke about, mentioning the hadith, clarifying al-Qadr, this is of great importance. This is not what is meant by the Prophet ﷺ to refrain from speaking about al-Qadr. No. This is an explanation of al-Qadr. This is absolutely fine. Well, it's needed. It's obligatory to learn this. As for what is beyond that, that is what the Prophet ﷺ warned against. He said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْقَدَرُ. If al-Qadr is mentioned, فَأَمْسِكُوا. Stay away. Refrain from delving. This was narrated by al-Tabarani. This is because what we mentioned is the explanation of al-Qadr according to what is mentioned in the religious texts. As for what is prohibited, then that is delving into the issue of destiny while trying to reach its secret, while trying to reach its core. Like that answer that some people want of why did Allah will all of these things when Allah is not in need of us? Allah doesn't hope for reward. Allah does not fear punishment. Why create us? Why create us and then paradise and hell and then insert us into paradise? Why? This answer that people want, this is the secret of al-Qadr. This is the core of al-Qadr. This is, you could say, the essence of al-Qadr. And it is not something that we will reach. It is not something that we will come to know about in this life. Al-Shafi'i and Al-Hafiz ibn Asakir narrated from our master Ali radiyallahu anhu that a person asked about al-Qadr. Tell me about al-Qadr. Tell me about its core, its essence. Tell me about it, its foundation. What is al-Qadr? Why? The big why. So Al-Imam Ali radiyallahu anhu said, Sirrullah fala tatakallaf. He said, it is a secret of Allah. Don't worry about it. Don't delve into it. Don't exert yourself to try and find out. Don't, like they say, don't lose your mind over it. Don't lose sleep over it. Just leave it. Surrender. It is a secret of Allah. Sirrullah fala tatakallaf. Don't exert yourself. However, when the man insisted, he insisted and insisted and insisted. Al-Imam Ali radiyallahu anhu said to him, Amma idha abayta, if you will not refrain, if you refuse to stop, if you're going to continue asking me, then look, I'll tell you something. That believing in al-Qadr is between two things. So he's not giving him the answer of the core or why, and he's just giving him something by which he can channel his beliefs so that he stays safe. He's giving him parameters of safety. He said, أما إذا أبيت, if you refuse to stop asking me, then look. فإنه أمر, al-Qadar is a matter, بين أمرين, it's a matter between two matters. لا جبر ولا تفويض. It's not jabr and it's not tafweed. Don't go as far as saying, firstly, that it's jabr, and don't go as far as saying that it's the opposite end, at-tafweed. Al-jabr is, don't go and say, well, Allah created me and my intention and the world and the universe, and so you know what? I'm not to blame because Allah did all this. I'm not to blame. I shouldn't be to blame. He shouldn't ask me. This is kufr. Right? Like to say, we're just like a feather in the wind being taken left and right and left and right, and that we are not accountable. This is the kufr part. So he said, La jabr, it's not jabr. Don't go down that route. And then don't go down the other route either of tafweed. Don't say that, for me to be accountable, I've got to make sense of it. For me to be accountable, Allah must have given me the ability to create. So I must create. And if I create something bad, Allah will reprimand me. That's it. This is also kufr. Because then a person has attributed creating to himself and many others. Where is La ilaha illallah? That there is no creator other than Allah, if he attributes creating to himself. So Imam Ali said, فَإِنَّهُ أَمْرٌ بَيْنَ أَمْرَيْنِ. It's between two matters. Neither should you go to the extreme of jabr and say, you know what, I'm not even accountable. I shouldn't be asked. As though to say Allah would be wrong to ask me. That's kufr. And it's not tafweed either. It's not that one should then try to decipher with the intellect and say, so I must be a little creator. That's why Allah, it would be valid for him to reprimand me. Otherwise, why would he reprimand me over something that he created for me? That's also kufr. So we stay in between, which is what? That Allah created our deeds and our intentions and so on. And what we will do is eternally willed, except that we have a sense of free will. Ikhtiyar, we have a sense of free will, which is that right now we don't know. We don't know what has been written, so we do things by our own intention, even if Allah created them. So the correct belief of Ahl Sunnah is to say that we believe in ikhtiyar ma'a shay'in min al-jabr. Ikhtiyar mamzujun bil-jabr. That we believe that we have a choice, we have a free will, and this has a hint of, if you want, being compelled. A hint, because it's already written. But we don't say that's unfair. We don't say that's an injustice. هو الاختيار مع شيء من الجبر. اختيار ممزوج بالجبر. Literally, ikhtiyar is to have a choice, which we do. We feel that we do. But this is under the umbrella of what's already written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. So we will only be driven to do what is written. So there is a hint there of being compelled. But we don't object to Allah. That's the difference between us and the Jabriyah. We'll stop here today, inshaAllah ta'ala. We'll stop here. In the next lesson, inshaAllah, we're also going to talk about al-Qadar, about guidance, and then a very important part of this is that the will of Allah does not change. And we'll mention the two types of qadr. Al-Qadr al-Mahtum, Al-Qadr al-Mubram, and then the second type, Al-Qadr al-Mu'allaq. Insha'Allah, we'll mention that in some detail, insha'Allah. But we'll stop here today. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.